Northern Mali conflict Tuareg rebellion, January to April 2012. The first attacks of the rebellion took place in Menaka, a small town in far eastern Mali, on 16 and January 17, 2012. On 17 January, attacks in Aiguilhawk and Tesselit were reported. The Mali government claimed to have regained control of all three towns the next day. On 24 January, the rebels retook Aiguilhawk after the Malian army ran out of ammunition. The next day the Mali government once again recaptured the city. Mali launched air and land counter-operations to take back the seized territory, amid protests in Bamako and Kati. Malian President Amadou Toumani Touré then reorganized his senior commanders for the fight against the rebels. On February 1, 2012, the MNLA took control of the city of Menaka when the Malian army operated what they called a tactical retreat. The violence in the north led to counter-protests in the capital city of Bamako. Dozens of Malian soldiers were also killed in fighting in Aiguilhawk. On 6 February, rebel forces attacked Kidal, a regional capital. On March 4, 2012, a new round of fighting was reported near the formerly rebel-held town of Tesselit. The next day, 3 Malian army units gave up trying to lift the siege. The United States Air Force airdropped supplies via C-130 Hercules aircraft in support of the besieged Malian soldiers. The C-130s most likely came from either Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, or Mauritania, both of which are known to have been used by the United States military. On 11 March, the MNLA retook Tesselit and its airport, and the Malian military forces fled towards the border with Algeria. The rebels advanced to about 125 kilometers away from Timbuktu, and their advance was unchecked when they entered without fighting in the towns of Dire and Goundam. Ansar Dine stated that it had control of the Mali-Algeria border. Coup d'état. On March 21, 2012, soldiers were dissatisfied with the head they got and with the course of the conflict attacked Defense Minister Sadio Gassama as he arrived to speak to them. They then stormed the minister's car, forcing him to flee the camp. Later that day, soldiers stormed the presidential palace, forcing Touré into hiding. The next morning, Captain Amadou Sanogo, the chairman of the new National Committee for the Restoration of Democracy and State, CNRDR, made a statement in which he announced that the junta had suspended Mali's constitution and taken control of the nation. The mutineers cited Touré's alleged poor handling of the insurgency and the lack of equipment for the Malian army as their reasons for the rebellion. The CNRDR would serve as an interim regime until power could be returned to a new, democratically elected government. The coup was unanimously condemned by the international community, including by the United Nations Security Council, the African Union, and the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, the latter of which announced on 29 March that the CNRDR had 72 hours to relinquish control before landlocked Mali's borders would be closed by its neighbors, its assets would be frozen by the West African Economic and Monetary Union, and individuals in the CNRDR would receive freezes on their assets and travel bans. ECOWAS and the African Union also suspended Mali. The US, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank suspended development aid funds in support of ECOWAS and the AU's reactions to the coup. Côte d'Ivoire President Alassane Ouattara, who was the rotational chairman of ECOWAS, said that once the civilian government was restored an ECOWAS standby force of 2,000 soldiers could intervene against the rebellion. Burkina Faso's President Blaise Compaoré was appointed as a mediator by ECOWAS to resolve the crisis. An agreement was reached between the junta and ECOWAS negotiators on 6 April, in which both Sanogo and Touré would resign, sanctions would be lifted, the mutineers would be granted amnesty, and power would pass to National Assembly of Mali Speaker Diane Kounda Traoré. Following Traoré's inauguration, he pledged to wage a total and relentless war on the Tuareg rebels unless they released their control of northern Malian cities. Continued offensive. During the uncertainty following the coup, the rebels launched an offensive with the aim of capturing several towns and army camps abandoned by the Malian army. Though the offensive ostensibly included both the MNLA and Ansar Dine, according to Jeremy Keenan of the University of London School of Oriental and African Studies, Ansar Dine's military contribution was slight. What seems to happen is that when they move into a town, the MNLA take out the military base, not that there's much resistance, and Iyad, Agagali, goes into town and puts up his flag and starts bossing everyone around about Sharia law. On March 30, 2012, the rebels seized control of Kidal, the capital of Kidal region, as well as Ansongo and Buram in Gao region. On 31st of March, Gao fell to the rebels, and both MNLA and Ansar Dine flags appeared in the city. The following day, rebels attacked Timbuktu, the last major government-controlled city in the north. They captured it with little fighting. The speed and ease with which the rebels took control of the north was attributed in large part to the confusion created in the army's coup, leading Reuters to describe it as a spectacular own goal. On April 6, 2012, stating that it had secured all of its desired territory, the MNLA declared independence from Mali. However, the declaration was rejected as invalid by the African Union and the European Union.